Hello, everybody. It's another great day to have somebody very special today with us. It's Bora Ger. He has a very international and very interesting background also, like many of our guests. Well, you can guess where he's from. I wasn't successful, but well, he's German. His mother is German. His father is from Turkey, from beautiful Istanbul. And well, we have the pleasure to have him on the podcast. So welcome, Bora. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, and hello also, Alejandro. Thanks for having me. I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Bora is actually working at edX Partners. It's in Karlsruhe, right? No, correct me. It's in Frankfurt. And
it's actually virtually everywhere. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, actually now not only because of pandemics, but it will be also the topic of our dialogue. He works a lot of this on disruptive strategy, business model innovations, complex transformations. What does it mean also for a business to go to the digital space, to this kind of to have this kind of transformation? No, also a lot of on Internet of Things, disruptive innovations, technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc. And also quite a lot of complex things. As we are not all specialists, we would like to maybe add something you want to add to the short presentation, Bora, because you really have an impressive CV, an impressive LinkedIn profile. We can also see it on your followers. And well, I don't know if you want to add something on that.
Yeah, well, thanks for the kind words, first and foremost. Yeah, I mean, to put it in a nutshell, I know there's a lot of words, digital transformation, strategy, all the technology. And I know that can be quite a handful and people are overwhelmed when they have to do with all these topics, especially if you're a business owner. I mean, if I put it in a nutshell, I'm helping organizations, teams, leaders to basically navigate through what we call digital transformation, right? And digital transformation, despite what people might think, is not so much just or only about technology. It's much more about really the intersection of people, organization, technology, focusing, obsessing about your customers. It's really about changing customer behavior. It's how also technology as a tool changes the ability of customers to consume services, products in very, very different ways. When that happens in the markets, obviously, that's what we call it, disruption. We have seen it in many, many sectors already, right? I mean, the typical examples come to mind, be it Netflix that basically killed Blockbuster, be it back in the day, Apple and the iPhone that basically took Nokia almost out of the market. Instagram basically reducing the photo industry to dust with only 13 employees. Those are, I think, the really exciting moments where people start listening and eyebrows go up. Okay, what's happening here? And this is basically what I'm dealing with, helping organizations anticipating these kind of moves, what they can do to prepare themselves to not be disrupted, but also to plan their way ahead to be the disruptor.
So your main customers, are they rather probably big enterprises, big multinationals that contact you and where you go hand in hand and not only explain all this jungle of terms, but actually develop a specific strategy? Or how can we imagine that?
Yeah, in the recent years, I've first and foremost actually working with Fortune 500 companies, DAX 30 companies, mostly due to the fact that I've been working in a Big Four consulting firm before I joined edX Partners, and edX Partners as a management consulting firm as well, mostly working with the bigger clients, but also medium-sized enterprises. Nevertheless, that's not where I started. I started out really also already as a student consultant, really many, many years ago, helping organizations also on a smaller scale, also non-profit organizations in a variety of topics to basically find their way in these kind of transformations. But nowadays, mostly bigger companies that I've been working with on several topics. Yes.
What would you say are the biggest challenges? I don't want to say problems. What would be the biggest challenges, but also like the camps of where we can improve, the camps of improvements?
Well, actually, I think it's fair to call it a problem. And I'm also a big fan of calling things as they are. I know often consultants, specifically when they address clients, they tend to speak in a different language, not talk about problems, frame it as a challenge. It sounds nicer, right? Well, it is a problem, right? It's a problem if you go out of business. It's a problem if you don't stay competitive in the market. It's a problem. So yeah, let's say what it is. It is a problem. And maybe something to pick up now because of the question you just asked is, what are the actual questions to ask at the very beginning when a company or a leadership team wants to embark on, for example, digital transformation? Yeah, the point is, sometimes really basic. What's the purpose of your company? Why are you doing this? Why are you getting up every morning? What motivates you to actually say, yeah, this is what I want to do? And that maybe now reflects on what you have been doing for the last years or the last decade. But now it's about the question, what do you need to do with what kind of purpose if you want to still be competitive in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years to come, right? Because very clearly, what made you successful in the past, now in the digital age, most likely won't make you successful in the future. Yeah, and this is something to digest at the very beginning, because if you don't do so, there's the risk. And the risk is to only look at digital transformation or digital in terms of, okay, let's make some incremental changes, right? Let's digitalize our processes, which is fine, enhances the core business, yeah. But to have the idea that, oh, now I digitalize my existing business and I bring in also new platforms, I go to the cloud. This is all correct, this is all necessary, but that doesn't mean you have digitally transformed, right? Mostly it affects your core business, what you have been doing in the past. You become more efficient, and also, of course, you enhance what you have been doing. But you want to look beyond that, right? You want to go beyond the core, beyond what you have been doing in terms also of business models, and think about, hey, what are others doing? Not just in my sector, but in adjacent sectors to serve the customers I have now better. Or maybe what can I do and change my business model to not just address customers better, but even serve customers that I haven't been serving so far, right? So the questions go way beyond updating your core business. It must be also a strategy about exploring completely new ideas, how to grow your company.
And your customers, normally when you have the first talks, are they actually aware, or at least, well, in the second step, maybe willing to do that step? Because it's, as you said, it's rather not just on the how you call it, on the Oberfläche, on the surface, but it's rather, like you said, business model innovation, no? And to have like a sustainable success, you have to do this, no? So are they actually really, do they know when they contact you that it's not only digitalizing the procedures?
Well, it's a mixed bag, right? And it's a mixed bag because on the one side, you have the operative pressure to develop whatever you have at the moment for further and forward. And that's still right. I'm not saying this is not something companies should be doing. But when it comes then to a dual approach, to on the one side say, of course, you want to further enhance the core business, whatever you have been driving, but to build also something for the future often has to include, okay, how do I do that? In what kind of organizational setup? What kind of skills, what kind of people do I need to actually make this happen? Do we have a dedicated innovation process in our company? And this is a conversation that partly is already happening in the organization or the clients you're talking to, but very often it's kind of at the very beginning, or there's something is in place, but it's not really delivering for different reasons, right? So in the beginning, it's really, really important to make that clear, and also to map out what's already there and what needs to potentially change, or what needs to be put in place to have a realistic chance to not just enhance and iteratively incrementally develop the company further, but really build something new.
And in terms of time for such a transformational change, what can we expect? What can we, it's 1 month, it's 1 week, it's 1 year, all this process that you, of course it depends on many things, no? But
yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a longer journey in terms of what's your end goal, what's your end game, what's the purpose you want to fulfill, right? But that doesn't mean you don't get results much earlier, because it's not, I mean, you can be overwhelmed, of course, at the beginning of all the things that potentially need to change over time, right? But the clue really is to take small steps. And small steps means you create a roadmap that not only includes some far-fetched goals somewhere in the future, but you also have particular milestones internally, what you want to achieve internally in the organization, but also what you want to achieve for the customer. And that means you go on an exploration journey. And then again, if you build the right structure, if you bring in the right methodology, you can create results actually pretty fast. And I give you an example, like a really basic example. I really clearly remember the first time I did an innovation sprint. So design thinking, right? Also one of these buzzwords going around, but what does it really mean? So basically you get the challenge on Monday, right? So a CEO comes to you and says like, hey, here I have a very specific challenge. What can we do about it? And then you get together with a diverse team of strategy consultants, developers, UI, UX designers, market specialists. And for 5 days, you first look at the problem, specify what the problem is. Then you collect ideas how to solve the particular problem, what you need for that, and you actually build a prototype. And you test that prototype with actual clients. And then when you have that kind of, you get the response and you learn from it, you integrate that and you learn, okay, this idea probably wouldn't take off immediately. This sounds promising. And then you have a couple of initiatives by the end of the week that you can actually present already to the CEO. And people, when they hear this the first time, they're like, that never works. Come on, how far can that go? It's like superficial and that has no depth to it, right? But if you really follow that concept and really dig down, deep down what the problem is, you are amazed what people come up with in terms of ideas really fast, right? And if of course then scale that in terms of initiatives, and you have design sprints in your organization, for example, for a month for different initiatives, and then you look, okay, what really works in terms of product and services, what doesn't. You check with your clients and your customers outside what really is interesting to them, and then you can develop it further, right? But the beauty of it is you always have results. You always get feedback, and it's not the typical approach, market research. Oh, we kind of know what the client wants or what the customer wants, and then you build something basically in your laboratory, right? Because you did market research in the very beginning, and then you build it to the very end. It's 100% perfect. And then you roll it out, and then it's kind of a hit and miss situation, right? So you don't really know before you actually go at the very end to your customers, does your product really fly? Is the service that you created really something that the customer wanted? That's a traditional approach, and more often than not, it's not that successful. So bringing in new methodology, new ways of working is absolutely crucial to get your organization transformed and really serve the customer.
So I guess during this process, and actually during the last years, you have accumulated a lot of not only theoretical, because that would be one question, what is your theoretical background for the methodology? And also you have to be good in sales because you have to sell them also. You have to be good at marketing. You have to be a specialist on these things, on the transformational. So you have to bring a lot of skills, not only theoretical, but actually practical, to do this transformation, no? Because you have to talk maybe not only to the CEO, to the chief operations officer, to the sales manager, et cetera, no?
Yeah, that's actually true.
Quite
and
challenging.
Then again, yeah, that definitely is true. And that is why it is a team sport, right? And I always like to say that at the very beginning, digital is a team sport, right? It's not about bringing one digital consultant in and he saves or she saves the world, or you define like a chief digital officer and all of a sudden you become digital. That's not how it works, right? So it's really a team effort. But yeah, it's true. On the one side, you are somebody who creates awareness. You're kind of an evangelist in certain situations. Then again, you are in the role of a coach, specifically for leadership, because often it's leadership that needs to change before an organization is able to change, right? So you can say an organization is as open as the mindset is of leadership, right? Otherwise, you might have really talent somewhere in the organization, but they will never be able to bring something or develop something of real value if that can only happen behind closed doors, right? So that's that as well. And then, of course, it's about building these kind of programs, also building digital units in which teams can experiment and actually develop new products, new services in a safe environment, right? Because imagine you're working in a huge line organization, which is trimmed 100% on efficiency, and then all of a sudden you have a team that starts experimenting. What does it even mean, experimenting, right? Where are your KPIs? Where is your business plan? How much money are you going to spend? So it's a very different mode of working, and of course, if that's not already there in the organization, you have to build that. And that's, by the way, also something that I've been doing quite often now in the recent years. Either build something internally in the organization, like new digital teams in a specific setup to achieve that goal, or also building new legal entities outside of the organization or in a different location to also develop teams there that work on specific ideas, products, services, but never losing the connect, of course, to the mother organization. Because at the end of the day, you have to decide, is that something that can connect with the home organization, with the mother organization, and can connect with the core business model, or is it something you want to grow in parallel, right? Because both ways are possible, and it's not either or. In the best case scenario, it's actually both. You have a couple of initiatives that you develop that enhance the core and develop also the core further, enhance your existing business model, but also you want to build new business models that you can also scale later on. Yeah.
Wow, very complex, but quite interesting. Concerning the disruptive strategy we were talking about on LinkedIn, what would you say? For example, you mentioned also that sometimes if the leadership doesn't want to change, you cannot use the potential that is in the company, no? What would you say, because I know it's quite from some examples here in Austria, but also from Mexico, how would you tackle these issues? How would you try to transform if the leadership maybe wants or isn't quite sure if he really wants to change, but he hires you, he tells you, hey, we need to innovate, we need to digitalize. Maybe you can give us some examples of real life experiences, or how would you attack these issues?
One thing, radical candor, brutal honesty. I think this is the only way, and it's, when I say the only way, it is not so much about willingness. Often, if a client goes already down the road hiring either my services or company services, it's really about also making aware and building that particular case also for the particular person, for leadership, why they should go down that road. I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking to people, right? And you're not talking to entity as the organization. So first and foremost, of course, you need to understand what's the agenda, why is a specific person driving a certain program in an organization. It might start out, for example, as an IT program, right? So you have the situation that it has been decided to update your IT landscape. And that's obviously also something you want to do as a consultancy, but that's also a great opportunity to ask questions like, all right, why do you want to update that? yeah, everybody goes to the cloud. Okay, but why do you want to go also into the cloud? Are you aware of the opportunities, how it might change your business, how it might change how you engage with your customers, how it might change how you collaborate within the organization with partners in your supply chain? And if you start this conversation early on, you can broaden the perspective, right? And that is, I think, what you really need to do at the very beginning, not just take for granted whatever is already on the table, but ask those questions and also dig a little bit deeper. What's the strategy here? Where you want to go? Is there a specific purpose in place that people actually want to follow, right? And if you really take the opportunity at the very beginning to ask those questions and also to understand better what the people in front of you want to achieve down the road, that's what you really need to do. And also, and that's why I meant brutal honesty, expectation management, right? Because sometimes if there's a situation that people think, yeah, we actually want to go to the moon, virtually speaking, with their business, then you say, yeah, well, that's a perfect idea, and let's discuss how you're going to get there. And then you see there's not much appetite for risk, there's not much boldness. You of course have to address that, right? Because otherwise people expect the moon, but what they get is a trip to the city, I don't know, 5 kilometers out there, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's also really, really important to do. Set the expectation level, and tell also the organization, tell the people you're talking to what really needs to be done on a holistic level, right? And not so much just in a particular department to achieve those goals.
Mm. And how would you demystify, when we were talking before the interview, you told me you could demystify and demystify the term digital transformation. You have mentioned already some issues, no? But yeah. It's not, for many, it's not very clear. So of course, this has been a part, what you have told us, but what would you add? What is important to know?
Yeah, maybe demystifying it in that way, first and foremost, I think if you have a room full of managers and you would ask that question, what is digital transformation? In all likelihood, you would get probably 12,000 different answers, right? So first, have a joint frame what we're talking about. And here, most importantly, point one is it's not about technology at the center, right? It's about people. It's about your customers. Yeah, technology is a tool. I think first and foremost, something in terms of demystifying what it really is, that needs to be on the agenda and to be clarified. I mean, as soon as people hear the term digital, they kind of tend to understand it like from a technology point of view, right? But then, of course, you really have to make it about what it really is at the core, and that is how you address your customers, be customer obsessed, and it's all about that. And secondly, innovation, right? But innovation, not just, again, in terms of technology and technology development, but how you use and how you bring in technology to fulfill a certain purpose in your organization to serve the customer better. And this might change your processes, your organizational model, the skills you need in your organization, the overall business model, and of course, bringing in something like an organized innovation process that allows you not just once, not just twice, but continuously develop new ideas that potentially can become innovative solutions and products. I think that is something that really brings it to me, and also when I have my conversations with clients, to the very core, what it is and what it should be for organizations when they embark on that journey.
Sounds very good and promising. And actually, it reminded me, all this dialogue, also having a philosophical historic background on, it reminded me a lot of Socrates, his myotic form of questioning. Why do you do this? And why? And what is the purpose? What is your motivation behind it? No? To get to a certain truth, or to get to your basic, to your foundations, and from then restart again, rebuild, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very, very well formulated comparison, because it's really going to the basic, it's going to the core, it's going to the roots. And if you know that, and if you want to achieve, to have a conversation that goes really down to the roots of why people are doing certain things, yes, you need to address us with questions. And I think also, maybe to add to the demystifying aspect, it's not about being an expert for digital transformation. I mean, it sounds maybe a little bit weird to say that and like, hey, I'm an expert on that. I think we're all something like professional dilettantes in that way, right? Because it's not so much about a blueprint and one case fits all. It's about certain ground rules. It's about certain approaches and ways to go about it. And of course, you have good practice, right? That you collect over time in theory, but also, of course, from what you do. And you can apply that, but you need to understand it's more about a structured approach, asking the right questions and being willing and bold enough to accept what you learn, right? Because it's not so much rocket science. Oh, here are the things that I actually need to change to achieve my goals. But am I willing to change that? Do I want to go through the pain of transformation? Because yes, sometimes it is pain. Yeah? And it's not just fun and, oh, it's marketing and wonderful. Look at this beautiful journey. No, it's a lot of work, but it can be really rewarding work. But as you said, it goes down to the roots and you have to ask the right questions at the beginning, and also all the way through.
There's one question that a friend sent me because he knew that we would interview you. And he's saying, I have to translate it in my head from Spanish into English, but he says, we have seen, especially now during the pandemics, that almost everybody has to change to the digital world because it has exponentially grown. If you want to change to the digital world, there are so many offers. Which basic points do you recommend to consider to those that are creating a startup, a business, using this digital media or these digital forms to not lose ourselves in the sea of proposals, because there is so much that apparently confuses the people also, no? Also the terms, etc. That you already mentioned it, no?
Yeah, I think a couple of things we already discussed today
go
in that direction. Yeah. Answer a little bit also the session, but I want to take it up nevertheless. I agree, it's a complete jungle out there if you look now at the agencies and consultancies that offer specific services, right? And taking a couple of steps back, being in the situation as a startup or as an established company, be aware, first and foremost, why do you want to do these kind of things, right? It comes back to that. If you see an offer where people want to sell you, hey, here's our newest blockchain solution. All right. Do you need that? And why, right? And it might sounds awkward, but there are companies out there that pick up a technology, in that case, let's say blockchain, and they build some sort of solution. And then they have the challenge, oh, how do we now sell internally that solution to the company? And then they come and then they have the request, for example, to build, hey, can you build a communication strategy or some sort of like internal marketing strategy so that we can offer the solution now, this blockchain solution to our business units? And I'm like, so you develop that blockchain solution without the business units you now want to sell it to? You already spot the problem. So coming back to the question, if you're looking for services, have a keen eye on what your counterpart or the people you want to involve, what kind of questions do they ask, right? Do they want to come like with a portfolio and they show you everything and then it's like, come on, choose and pick, right? Which normally happens. Or is it more like a dialogue like that we now have, right? It's first about better understanding what's the situation, where do you want to go? Do you have some sort of clear understanding what your customer really wants? What are those jobs to be done, right, that you want to address? If that's already there, they dig deeper and part by part, you get into solution mode, right? But if somebody goes directly into solution mode, that's for me a red flag, right? And I think if you're a founder or established company, you should really look now, if you take digital transformation seriously, for a partner that starts with you a conversation in terms of a co-creation and co-design approach. It's not about hey, here's our solution, here's our approach, and it will work no matter what. very unlikely. Okay, it's really about creating that particular way for you as a founder or for you as an organization, as a leader that works in your company. And of course, there needs to be good practice, right? But it's as soon as it's like there's something out of the box, blueprint will work, it's a clear red flag.
Very well answered. I'm sure we will have you again here if it's possible. I would like to ask you like 2-3 questions to end this conversation. Singularity University, we know it. It's I have a person who teaches there also, and can you tell us about this experience, because it's in the heart of innovation, I think, no?
It certainly is. It's all about exponential innovation in that case. Yeah. Of course, it was awesome to be there. Awesome to meet the faculty. Awesome to learn from them, specifically also from the other participants back in the time, because you had like a huge variety of really interesting companies at the heart of Silicon Valley to talk to. And of course, yeah, I mean, I've been reading a lot about exponential innovation before that, and of course then actually going there, learning from the absolute thought leaders in particular technology, organizational leadership topics. That was a magnificent experience. And I think what I got most out of that was really like, okay, how do you start thinking exponentially? Because it's not that easy, right? Like, how do you come from this linear curve to something that really, really shoots up? And what can you do also from a methodology point of view to bring that to the organization, right? And I think that is really what they deliver and what they work on and further develop. And yeah, it's a really worthwhile exercise.
And concerning your professional development, was it very clear since you were studying in which direction you wanted to go, or how would you explain now, looking back, your professional development? Because in this area, everything changes so fast. So what would you say?
If you asked me now, let's say 20 years ago, yeah, you're going to be a consultant working with Fortune 500 companies, I would have probably been like, yeah, sure, right? No, that was not like from day one in the books, but what I really experienced early on was that I enjoyed this mode of working on projects, working with teams on different topics that switch, like, you know, having like to think quickly, get into a new issue, and then try to solve that, not just on your own, but with a team. And yeah, that I found early on was super exciting, which didn't mean, okay, that's going to be a consulting career for you, because I still spent a lot of time also in academia. I did a lot of teaching, also doing research, also worked for corporate, not as a consultant, but as an internal as well. So I know both sides, not only from a consulting perspective, but also from an internal perspective. But also my time in academia really shaped my views, you know, to also be, let's say, at the intersection of latest thinking, but also creating that practical knowledge out of that and bringing that into practice and make it also usable, for example, for managers. And I think this like intermix kind of brought me to where I am today. Yeah.
And what would you say are the 3 maybe lessons or the 3 requirements for your profession, for your day-to-day work? What are the 3 most important points that you would say you have to bring?
That's a good question. I have to think about it. I mean, first and foremost, if you're not a curious person, that's tough, right? So you need to be curious, you need to be keen and interested in a lot of things, because to do that, from my point of view, properly, and maybe there are other ways, yeah, is you need to be a synthesizer to connect things. But to be able to connect things, you have to have an interest in many different things. So that doesn't mean you have to be an expert on every single topic, specifically when it comes to technology, but you need to get the core of it and grasp it, what it means and what it translates to, right? For example, to business, and then, you know, draw the lines, how you can actually pull that together, and what does it create, what emerges out of it, right? So you want to be that kind of thinker. And secondly, I think you need to be an avid reader, right? Because there's so much information out there and it's developing so fast. So you want to grasp information really, really quickly, and you need to love to read a lot, because otherwise it's really, yeah, exactly like down there, right?
That's actually the last question. I'm coming to
books
it.
everywhere, right?
Yeah, I'm coming
yeah,
to it.
yeah, and thirdly, I think what shouldn't be forgotten is resilience and perseverance, because if you're in the innovation business, nothing happens just like that. You have to work for ideas, and that can become potentially innovation, right? Because convincing people, bringing the right people together, getting the momentum, getting budget, convincing clients to go in a certain direction, that is actually hard work, and you get a lot of flack for that, right? There's always like the defenders of yesterday. Yeah, and that is something you need to take into account as well, because it's not just that you're out there and create something new, you actually have to work for it.
Well, nice. The books. In order to close, I saw you have also many books, and you mentioned it. Maybe you can tell us what you're currently reading, what we should read, and maybe the top 3 of your professional development books. And if you want to add something else, another book, maybe you read poetry, maybe you read Sufism because of Turkey, maybe there's a movie we should watch or something that you would recommend us for our audience.
No, well, too many, right? I mean, I could give you a comprehensive list, and if that is something you want to put under the video at the end, right? Maybe
perfect. We
can do. Yeah, we can do that as well. But what I want to point out is the book Exponential Organizations that I read back in 2016, and not because it prepares you or gives you a lot of insight in terms of methodology and how to go, for example, about transformation. I mean, it gives you hints, obviously, but there are other books that do that in a very particular sense. But what this book does, or did for me, is creating the right mindset to approach problems or think about problems, or why just linearly approaching problems has its clear limits, and how you can overcome those limits, because that is the very, very basic exercise you need to go through as a leader before you actually can put your organization on that kind of trajectory, right? So I think that book really, really does well explaining what that means, nice examples from the past, from today. I think there's a second iteration coming out by the end of this year, right? So I think the author is working on it. So yeah, I think that was something that really shaped also my approach, how to think about digital transformation a lot, and I can only recommend that.
Well, thank you very much for the dialogue, for the interview, Bora, and we hope to see you soon. So much to learn.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and yeah, best of luck and stay healthy.